She said, "Well, I'm going to. It's on Denver.
In camera? Oh.
This is the
Huh.
90%.
There we go. There we go. And all right, well, welcome back.
They got the air conditioning.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
We won't tell.
So it won't be quite as sweltering here as last week. Or, it seems last week. It was last week, right there. Well, we can catch you later. Okay. I want to start today, actually, so slight adjustments to schedule-wise. I want to spend time today to follow up with some things we didn't give enough time to at the end of session one, particularly talking about the blended classroom. I read there's some really good discussions already starting on our message board. But I do want to give us an opportunity to deal with as a whole class this idea of the blended classroom, flipped classroom, instructional implications. Talk about, forget technology tools, let's just talk like teaching and learning for a while. Then we'll discuss some issues with the Java Internet Browser plugin, your experience with using that voice board as a communication tool, and then also touch base on the class project and some initial ideas you have regarding what you might do for that. And then we'll get into this stuff in the course material session 2. Let's start looking at some more tools. Setting that stage, any questions, comments, or concerns? I just got really self-conscious realizing my behind is big front and center on the video I'm taking. So, sorry. That is setting that stage that way. Any questions, comments, or concerns before we start having that discussion?
Oh,
Sir.
we've replied 3 times to each. Is it 3 each or like 3 total? You know what I mean? 'Cause it was
Yeah,
3 total.
yeah.
It's like, do you want 9 different posts, or do you just
If
want
this were more of an online class, I'd be more reply to your classmates because that's how the interaction happens. But since this is a blended class, just so you reply to people. I don't care. Post an original thought and reply to your classmates.
Okay.
I'm not going to say, oh, you only replied 2 times with this one, and once there.
Because some people, I've taken classes and they actually hammer you for not doing that. Yeah. Okay.
I won't. Just get the work done.
No, you
Yeah, and I do want to have some type of interaction online so you see what that's like. But that's a good question. Are there any other questions or comments before we jump in? Okay, so we finished last time in session 1 with this idea of blended and flipped classroom. And I am aware of the irony. I spent a lot of time talking in session 1. My goal for today and throughout the rest of the class is to not talk as much, but have some more just dialogue and discussion. Session 1, you're kind of setting the stage for the class, and you're building cultural norms and that kind of thing. And there was a lot of information to convey getting out of the gate. And so that's one of the reasons why it was kind of mostly me last time. But I want to do more discussion-based stuff. So recall your attention to kind of this idea of blended learning combines face-to-face, like we have right now, with an online class space, like we have in a Blackboard. So you can use Blackboard and just do a completely online class. We all grew up going to school completely face-to-face. Blended takes those 2 spaces and combines their use together. So this is definitely a blended class. Technically, every classroom in Fairfax County is a blended class because there's a school board rubric that every teacher will set up a FCPS 24/7 course space. Not that everybody uses it on board. but technically, we all have blended classrooms. So what are your, so, you shared some thoughts initially on the message board. I listened to all of them up in there. They were posted before 1 o'clock today. If you got them on up there after 1, I'll listen to them later. Well, what are some of your thoughts? Mm-hmm.
And a lot of my students don't have a computer or access, or they're not computer literate. So even if we gave them a computer to take home and Wi-Fi or whatever,
Right.
they're not sure.
Mm-hmm.
They're not familiar.
Access to technology is certainly an issue. Digital divide issues are always come up whenever we do anything with technology. What are other thoughts?
Kind of adding on that same issue, I've got third graders, so age-wise, I don't know how well they would go home and attend to something that I assign, but I can see kind of doing it within the classroom.
Right.
So maybe
I think you brought that point up in your discussion board post. Yeah. So
work with individual students
Mhm.
and then having a lecture or follow-up on the
Right.
video or some kind of other device.
Right.
Still, being able to monitor their attention to it is, with 8-year-olds,
Right.
it doesn't always happen, so. just to make sure.
and that gets at the visual access thing if you're doing it in class. I know you teach elementary, right? So I know that elementary is kind of known for stations, if you will, and different kids cycling through different learning units or learning centers. So a technology center that uses some of these tools in the class time is perfect use for that.
Last year, for the first time, we posted YouTube audio versions of Kill a Mockingbird and Animal Farm. And I teach self-contained special ed. And in the self-contained class, a lot of the kids are not reading at that level. So I assigned a chapter, and a number of the kids really got into the books because they were reading along and they could hear the language, where when they're just reading it themselves, they mispronounce most of the words and have no clue what's being said. So I found that quite useful. And as you said, your advertisement for the next upcoming, it would be nice to be able to post it by chapter so that they could just log into that and help them not have to scan as much.
Right. I remember growing up, my mom taught elementary school. She was always a first or second players. Yeah. Put the record with the physical book. Yeah. And when the beeps turn the page, you certainly can use these tools for that. Obviously,
And that
you're
would
dealing with
be-
high schoolers, but same.
So that's a blended classroom doing that.
Yeah.
Right? So
They're using some of the online tools in addition to support what you do face-to-face. Absolutely. What else?
Well, actually, in theory, with the blended, I'm with 100% with the blended learning. But the point is that sometimes you have to comment on some specific small detail that you find that is really important. And then you have to have a feedback from the students that they really understood. I teach special ed, at 8, and sometimes because of their learning style, I don't find that it is like getting to blend classroom at 100%. But for me, it's like maybe to choose some units, not all the curriculum, because I am with the paper pencil, teaching, because this is when you get also their attention, and then you can have like some kind on specific questions or specific details about some stuff. That's why, I might apply it, but I'm not going to be applying it at 100% as
Right.
other.
Next.
Yeah.
Welcome.
But because of this situation.
Right. And also, I remember a lot of, particularly, I'm actually weaving what you're about to say in a moment. There was a lot of discussion about people distinguishing between blended learning and flipped learning. What's that? Where's the line? There's a lot of overlap there, but where do you say each is?
Flipped learning is a type of blended learning.
Flipped learning is a type of blended learning.
Invented blended learning.
How so?
Because the flipped version, the lecture is being taught at home electronically, and then you have face-to-face contact.
Right. So again, the blended idea is used to, or it's kind of like where you meet. Like right now, we're meeting face to face. if this was, we're using a completely online class, we just meet online. Well, obviously this, we're using both tools, we're blending them together. Flipped is, the traditional, is really kind of based on the traditional instructional model where the teacher stands in front of the class, you have like rows, students rarely interact with one another, the teacher lectures for the entire class period. Well, that was the bulk of my schooling growing up. And then it gave assignments, we went home, we did work on our own, and then we came back and we listened to another lecture the next day on a new topic. The flipped part of that, flipped, what was the in-class lecture becomes an at-home, watch on your own type of thing. And the work on your own at home, with the homework, the math teacher video we saw last class, is really done in class with interaction and support. So,
I teach in elective, I teach marketing.
Yeah.
And blended is one thing that we pretty much do anyway at Computer Lab. We utilize a lot of Blackboard, Google, you name it. But the flip concept is something that I struggle to see with my particular content. It's almost like art or PE. How would you flip?
And Carol, pause that because I wanted to I forgot to tie in.
Sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, so if you do have that traditional model where you're delivering a lot of lectures and you want to do flipped, so you like record your lectures for your kids to watch at home, like that math teacher last week. You don't have to start. You start like one unit, or you don't have to completely do that every 100% of the time. A lot of teachers, when they are first exposed to this idea of the flipped classrooms, freak out, thinking, well, I've got to have my entire year recorded before I would even start this with my kids. So no, start like one class, or 1 week, or 1 unit, and maybe that's the only thing you flip all year long. You don't have to go 0 to 100 all at once, and that's kind of the point you're making. And so, unpause.
No, just to elaborate more, like I would find myself flipping it in the sense of like, I could put like lectures and material and so on and so forth, online for them to access, but I feel like I'd end up doing sort of the same approach in the classroom anyway. We do a lot of group activities and hands-on projects and so on and so forth that I could really flip the other way around.
Right. Okay, what you're saying is during in-class projects in marketing or in art, or even say at the elementary level, you're doing that student interaction, active learning anyway.
Mm-hmm.
The traditional sage on the stage delivery model is really kind of what is flipped.
Mm-hmm.
When they talk about flipped, because those other in classroom environments, well, you didn't have that lecture 100% of the time to begin with.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I had a friend who did the flipped 1 or 2 lessons last year, and the kids complained because they said we had questions at the time you were talking, and there wasn't that interaction. So how do you like have them post questions and then cover those at the beginning of the class, or how would you address that issue? They were frustrated with it.
I'm going to flip that question to reflect that the entire class. How would you answer that?
I would, like, you just make a post, probably have like a question post or some sort of like I can't remember what it's called. There's an app that I used it in class. It's like Post-it notes, and so
What's
you can
that?
just, I can't remember what it's called. I have to look it up real quick. But same concept. You can end up having 50 Post-it notes on like the screen that everybody can then go through, or you could go through and then work on together. Someone else might have this question.
Oh, what is that? It's like a virtual, like,
it's a virtual. It's basically a virtual tag board.
yeah.
Well, would the assumption be then that you would cover that back in class, because we don't want to be working 24/7?
True. Yes. Nor should we.
No, I agree.
But there are, whether it's like a virtual tag board like that, or even a threaded discussion board, where you just have a thread, questions from video lecture number 7 or whatever. So that's one way to address it. Another way is, all right, so come to class prepared with the questions you have. Well, so there's a number of ways to deal with that.
So who's doing it in Fairfax? Because I think we've gotten away from the sage on the stage. So if you're, are we doing it in Fairfax County?
We certainly are. I was actually,
Well, I was gonna say, my son went to Madison High School, he took an economics class that was 100% flipped. And I sit and watch the videos, and then he would write down his questions, and they said that's what they discussed when he went to class.
And what subject was that?
Economics.
Economics, okay.
so really two answers. Is it happening in FCPS? Yes. Who's doing it? The teachers who are doing it.
I guess I'm.
Is there a mandate to do it? No.
Yeah, I'm worried about math.
Yeah.
Because you want them to, you don't want to tell them, I mean, if the, I'm going to tell them how to stop, there's great videos out there that show you how to add and subtract, but you certainly don't want kids doing it.
Right.
You want them exploring, and that's my worry, and even with high school math.
Put a little pin on that because I want to come back to this idea of con videos.
Lino-It is what it was called. Lino-It.
Okay.
Lino.
Oh, okay. There are a couple of programs that do that.
I think flipped is more conducive to social studies and English because they do use more of the traditional. Now, I've been out of the high school for 2 years, but when I left, they were still doing the lectures. And so to go home and listen to those to then come back and use would be a good thing. And I think to find more of that type of thing is more conducive, I think, to those two kinds
I don't
of kids.
disagree. Although I've heard social studies types say, well, I can see this more in math and science, but not in my area. Yeah. But the video we saw last Thursday, she was definitely a high school math teacher.
Yeah.
And her examples were, I could show the procedure, I could do my lecture condensed, kids had questions, they could stop it, pause it, rewind it, and then we actually did where they got down to work and then found out they were confused here with my support.
Right, and that's the problem is the procedure.
Yeah.
If there's only one and they have to learn it, maybe,
Correct.
but.
My undergrad was physics and astronomy, and so lots of math, and I sat through a lot of math and science lectures
Right.
that weren't very interactive.
My question is, if you're doing math or science, how do you, it's one thing for me to be recorded my face, but then how do I change the screen so that you can see what I'm writing and like you do in a YouTube video?
The Khan Academy almost.
Yeah.
I was teaching online this summer.
Oh, excellent.
And we use Blackboard Collaborate. So
Mhm.
that's considered a blending or the flip.
Mhm.
Because I can teach like usually 1 hour, we'll probably like go more than an hour, and we record that lesson
Mhm.
and then post it in Blackboard, and then students have the whole day. They can review the lesson and also complete the assignments,
Right.
which it takes probably like a 4 hour
Mhm.
to do that.
Right.
Also,
Good.
so we're doing it in very fast.
Yeah.
Also, they teach online classes
Right.
here.
Right. Do you familiar with the online campus?
I read about it,
Yeah. There is an online campus. Mike Kowalski is the administrator for it. They're based over at Sprague. So they have like department chairs that are in that office, and they hire other like normal high school, middle school teachers to like teach an extra class, but that extra class is completely an online class. They never meet except 1 or twice face to face. Blackboard Collaborate is a tool they use a lot in that case, so that's a tool that can be used. Smart boards can capture what's written on the board. So if you have a smart board, you can use that smart board software to generate that, record the handwriting in video form. I'm recording it right now. Right now, what's coming in is from my camera. In a few minutes, when I show some stuff up here, I'm going to show my desktop. And so the video I'm recording and will be posted to YouTube will actually be showing what's on my desktop. So you can draw on your desktop and it's part of the video. So there are a number of technology tools that could be used to capture that video.
I was going to mention the desktop view you can
Yeah.
record, and then I know some schools have like their document cameras.
Document cameras.
That you could, I'm sure like budgets
Yep.
as far as trying to get those, but those are available if there was like a math class and you're writing it
Yeah.
out and it's just showing your handwritten.
Cell phones, your iPhone or Android. Or if you remember back in the day, we had those USB flip cameras. There's like a little video camera. There's a USB thing that flipped out, and you can just connect it directly to your computer. Some schools still have those.
Is the county moving towards purchasing like computers that have the cameras in them, or?
Actually, yeah. For a long time, that was resisted, but I think now as we can justify having cameras as not a security risk, but we can actually create good instructional materials with a camera, more and more are coming with cameras.
But I think it's also just like as they phase laptops out, the
Yeah.
new ones are automatically,
Coming
just
in.
the technology is now
Already embedded in.
already, well, I mean, once, say like a teacher retires and then a new teacher comes in, they're giving them a new laptop with,
Right.
you know.
Because I know for a long time, again, this is going back, say like 10 years, resisted cameras in student and teacher laptops, but now we're kind of coming the other way with that.
I teach an elective. I'm a middle school teacher. I teach theater. One of the classes I teach is advanced theater to just 8th graders. They have to have my permission to go into it and also be in class in 7th grade. We do mainly group work. They feel a lot more comfortable with group work, but I do have the advanced class write an original monologue. And what I really want them to do is, I give them a handout. I know you're thinking, oh, you're a theater teacher, you can just do a little video, but I want them to come up with their ideas and write on a piece of paper at home. So when they come in, then I can work with them one-on-one. And I do work with them one-on-one, and I can read their monologue right there and talk about what works, what doesn't, and they can also work in the classroom. Now, you would think that they take theaters like, yeah, they're gung-ho, but a lot of times most little kids are like, hey, theater, that's going to be really easy. But anyway, there's some kids that really love to work and do it, and then there's some kids that are just, they're just not there yet. But the thing is that I would love for these kids to just get all their ideas together at home or whatever ideas they can come up with, and then when they come in, then I can work with them. And then also we can work on the acting part of it as well. My intro classes do monologues, but they're not original. It's best that way. And I just say a lot of kids don't know boundaries as to what's appropriate and not in class anymore. This is my 24th year, and I can say that. So anyway, I provide the scripts, and then I do it different ways depending on how I can get the most work out of them, and I'll stop talking. But sometimes I actually it used to be I'd have one monologue per person, but sometimes I found out if I had many people do the same monologue, they could work in a group together. And then a lot of times somebody could be reading the monologue while they're actually trying to do the blocking, and we call them bits. And it's just, I don't know about you all, but trying to get middle school kids to work in electives, it's a lot different than the 90s. It really is. And I have some great kids, and then I have some kids that are great at not working. So anyway, but I would love for them to do this work at home, and then when they come in, I can be like a coach to them. Isn't that kind of like we're getting away from being a teacher and we're being like, not football coach, but like there's another word for it.
Let me leave. I wrote some questions that I wrote down when I was listening to your post today. So one of the things I jotted down, you just said, I'm going to push back a little bit. We're getting away from being a teacher. What is the role, responsibilities of a teacher? Later question, what's the role, responsibilities of a student?
Students should learn.
Students should learn. Well, you can say teachers should teach. Let's not use the word in the definition. So,
Teachers need to teach the students how to think. We're trying to make them ready for society when they get out of school. School is only, what, 1/7 of their lifespan or whatever? So, we want them to be able to function in society.
if we want to see an even bigger question, what's the purpose of education?
Right.
But the thing is, when they learn whatever they learn in the school, they go home and they come the second day, it's the first day of school again. So it's like deja vu, you know? Every day is like the first day of school, and you have to go back and forth.
Because they don't do it.
It's not that because they do not go home thinking that, oh, okay, I have something to do. They go home thinking, oh, the school is over. And the second day, oh, there's school. We go to the first day of school.
I think teachers, the role of a teacher is to teach students how to question, like Socrates said, and to be open to new ideas. Also teach them the skills to uncover, learning and accessing and using the knowledge. So I think those would be the two things.
That's why China.
My favorite parallel. We teach the skills to the students to think independently in the future, basically.
I can't teach people how to think, but I can guide their thinking. You cannot teach me how to think because my thinking is inside me, you know?
Mhm.
But you can help them or guide them to the path, yeah. But I cannot teach them.
Well, questioning is thinking. And so if you teach them how to question, and as they acquire more knowledge on
That's
their
why
own,
you're
they
guiding
will.
them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's right.
I just really I wrote that in my thing.
Mhm.
The teacher's role is not only as an instructor but also as a guide for the students while they are actively involved in class. This learning strategy will help the teachers to better assess their students and give individualized attention to the students and prepare for appropriate future lessons.
Mhm.
That's really the goal.
Right. Right. And a couple of people brought up this idea. You know, we've been saying this since I started my teaching career. You know, that the role of the teacher is changing. When I went through school, I listened to a lot of lectures where the guy opened his book, and he started reading his lecture, and it didn't matter whether people were sitting there or not. I had one teacher, you know, those old yellow pages that would have been in his binder for 20, 30 years of his teaching career. I had one teacher that delivered all his lectures to the ceiling. And so that was obviously the font of information up front. You know why lecturing was started as an instructional strategy, right? Anybody know why that was? People would read from the lectern because there was one copy of the book. And they would read from the book to the students before the printing press. You put books in everyone's hands. And we put books in everyone's hands, that's going to ruin education. But every technology that comes along is going to ruin education. But so, for at least recent history, let's forget going back to all the printing press days. But for almost my entire career in FCPS, we've been talking about changing the role from the sage on the stage to the guide on the side, helping the student go back to the other question. What's the role of the student? Well, to learn, to take some responsibility for their own knowledge and development. And even if I'm an elective, I want to get something out of this. Not to. Now, it's another role as a teacher, kind of help prod them along. If everyone could just learn everything on their own, we just say, here's a library, student, enter and learn everything. Today, well, here's the internet, student, go learn everything. You don't need me anymore. Well, that's not true. Khan Academy. There's pick any number of. We can find information very easily on any topic. If we were motivated enough and self-directed enough, all of us could learn whatever we wanted without the benefit of taking classes like this. I'm not that motivated. I could exercise on my own all the time and get my exercise in, but I have to sign up and take classes where I go and somebody prods me to push myself harder than I would push myself on my own. That's kind of the role of a teacher. We push our students harder than they would push themselves on their own if they don't know what next step to take or what exercises to do or what to read next or where. That's kind of our curriculum and our guidance along the way.
Well, and to evaluate, there's a lot of information on the internet, but so much of it is not academically, vetted and things. So
right.
That has to be learned too, is to assess.
Why would I challenge myself with Plato when I could just stick on Twitter all night?
And then you do. I have a question. I like all of this. I do have the same problem with accessibility to computers for many of my students. But are we going to do some vertical articulation so that, like, in the elementary schools, we're going to teach them, certain techniques so that as they get to middle school, we know that we do a flipped classroom, they know how to access it. And, you know, the blended, because that's often the problem that I find is, it's the assumption is that by 8th grade, they all have all this wonderful computer technology and skill, and they don't. They can't even double space. They can't.
Not a senior either.
I know.
Yeah. I think we're seeing that more in our leadership pushing us in that direction. Because we were kind of heading that direction for a long time, and then the standards movement hit. And we've got SOLs, and we've got to teach, test, prep, and prepare them for the exam. There's a lot of backlash, back to basics, and so whatever you. So there's been a lot of push for that. Looking at data, looking at numbers. Did you make your AYP? And that's the reality in which we all still live. But now, you know, that pendulum is kind of being pushed back to where we were 10, 15 years ago with things like Portrait of a Graduate. Looking at what type of citizens do we want to graduate out of our K-12 program? If you've seen anything from the recently adopted strategic goals from our school board, there's a lot of critical thinking, technology skills embedded in that. So I think you will see from today, there's been a little bit of momentum with this Portrait of a Graduate stuff over the last year and a half, and now with our new strategic plan, even more so. You'll be hearing more on digital transformation at all. Keep your ears open. That'll be the next thing as well. Looking at ways to infuse technology into our classroom, into our learning, into our instructional materials that will help do this blended, self-directed, student-centered, preparing our kids to be good citizens at the other end type of things. So there's a big digital transformation project going on at the central office, where we're starting to really have those conversations. And it kind of matches something in this definition. Yeah, so you'll see this phrase a lot. Pace, timing, and delivery, or sometimes pace, place, and there's another term. But it's, also a kind of a interaction, looking at interactions between not just teacher-student, not just teacher giving information to students, but setting up spaces where there's not just student-instructor interaction, but student-to-student, and you can do that with or without technology in classroom projects, student content, and student outside resources. So student content, I built this Blackboard shell to give you access to the course material all at once. And you'll have this as a resource for at least the next couple of years. So you can interact with the content without me physically being there. And then student outside resources, links to things like Khan videos where they might be appropriate, or YouTube videos, or other things that support that. So you'll see, I think, a lot of that transformation continue as we go forward. Good talk. Any other questions, comments?
You were mentioning something about Khan.
Oh, Khan, yeah. So Khan Academy videos, we want to explain what those are?
As far as I know, they're just math. Are they just math?
No,
Okay.
they are all
They
sorts
have
of stuff.
Okay, so yeah, I don't even know.
Khan Academy is I think it's a nonprofit, where they took a lead in creating some of these video lectures, certainly on every level of math. They're now partnering with, for adult learning as well. If you want to learn economics or investing strategies, you can go watch a Khan Academy video on that topic, or in sciences, or in social studies.
And it's just like YouTube.
It's like YouTube, but they're
And your exercises.
Very dry.
yeah. They can be very. They're taped lectures.
Yeah, but
They're still lectures.
first of all, the background is black,
Yeah.
and they go to that point going up, and it's boring. Sorry, I mean.
Not every lecture is riveting.
It's true.
Yeah.
But
Just because we put it on video doesn't mean it's the best instructional resource either. It's just a source that's out there.
Is it Khan Academy?
Khan Academy.
K-A-H-A-N.
K-A-H-N. So, you know, it's not that you have to use these,
No,
but just to be aware that they're out there. Last class, we looked at Learn 360.
That's it.
That's another source of videos. We looked yesterday and we'll look today more at YouTube as a wealth of stuff out there. And so there's external resources that are there that can help support, but a point I wanted to circle back around to was that nothing replaces the teacher. Even when we do use video and to do some flipped, a lot of the research and feedback says kids don't want a Khan Academy video. Kids want to see you. They want to interact virtually with their regular classroom teacher. They respond much better to that because you're the person they have the relationship with, not the Khan Academy lecturer, not the person I found on YouTube. So no matter what our delivery model is, blended, flipped, that teacher-student interaction, I say, is still paramount. Because our role as the teacher is getting to guide them and push them. Because we have that relationship with them, we're in position to do that. Trish,
Yeah.
Share the video, share the Washington Post article with me. I put in one of the announcements about blended learning being the new buzzword in education. And halfway through that article, they're talking about companies touting blended learning, individualized instruction, where you just put a kid in front of a computer and they don't need a teacher anymore. Rick's opinion, that's crap. There are places and times to use sort of external resources, but doing that is no different than, here's the Library of Alexandria, walk inside and read everything and learn.
But on the other side, businesses want people who can collaborate, so unless you're with students and group learning how to collaborate, you have no use to a business anyway.
Right. So, you know, we should be, you know, not just lecturing to our students all the time, helping them build those skills, but helping them build those skills. That happens in the context of a relationship with instructor and student, and within class, student to student within the same class space. Not by plugging you into a box and just letting the video play in front of your eyes and you don't interact with anybody else.
Again, I'm fortunate with what I teach, but when we do stage directions, and I just do the 9 basic on the stage and plus, you know, the wings and all that, but I pull them up. And they love that. They love that they're going to come up and they got to go upstage center, downstage, left, whatever. They love doing that. A lot of times when I'm doing just basic acting techniques is, you know, if you're talking and someone's coming to you, you know, who crosses in front of you or behind, and I just, you know, make up a scenario and I just say, okay, I'm the mom, you're coming home from school, but, you know, they're involved with the actual teaching. I guess you could say I use them as a prop, but they don't really, or they don't look at it that way. And then when I'm introducing a new acting assignment, I'll just pull them up and maybe I'll have a script, and we don't do a lot of scripts, but we do a lot of, we create our own, I call it practice improv. So we have, it's collaboration. I tell them who, what, where, when, but I do examples before and I pull people up. And they like that. They do like that a lot. And it's, I don't know, it's, you know, it's hands-on. It's hands-on. It's right. I am interested in this. I put on the school musical, and I was telling Rick, I said I'd like to, what we do is when we have the audition song, we try to find it. Like, trust me, you don't want to have middle school kids trying to figure out what their audition song is. So you pick their audition song from the play, the musical, and we put it online, so if they can go on and practice it. I also have workshops after school, and they can come there, or if they're in my class. But also, I look at a lot of YouTube videos of different, either Broadway musicals or college productions, or even community theater, to get ideas, and I find it very stimulating, and I'm hoping that they will too. So I kind of went around the block there, but that's okay.
with regards to collaboration in business, they're using a lot of FaceTime on computers and conference calls. So you still have the collaboration. So our kids do need to know how to do that because the markets for most businesses are international. And I know my husband talks to people in Europe and things on these conference calls. So the computers are important for them in this type of thing.
And Google's good for that.
And Google's good for that.
Yeah.
Because the reality is they will be collaborating and working with people they may not ever meet. And so you're helping build those skills in is key as well. And it's now in our portrait for graduate requirements and in our strategic plan as well.
It's in the requirement though, like we had to take a technology test. Is there going to be a certain proficiency for the students? Because the assumption is, again, they all know it, but they don't. And we graduate them on assuming they know
Well, there
it.
are, I'm not saying is there a test. There are tech standards of learning from VDOE.
But that's if they take a tech, no? Well, then how are we
There are
assessing?
technology standards. Now, is there an SOL for that? That proves fine. Yeah.
In my mind, I think we need to do that at different points along the way where they take.
I think you'll see more and more, and our superintendent is pushing us in that direction. From the 5th grade to the 5th grade, what's the technology gap project, global awareness technology project. It's kind of a capstone thing for 5th grade that looks at it as a topic of international awareness, and they use technology to do it. I think you'll see more things like that, maybe at 3rd grade, and maybe at 8th grade, and maybe at particular courses at the high school level as well.
But I just know that, and they don't have this. Many don't have the skills, and when you're in an SOL class and you're trying to teach the content, it's so frustrating to have to stop everything and spend 20 minutes in a class to get those kids up to snuff.
Yep.
And they're often the ones most at risk of failing the SOL.
Don't I know? And let me just do a little aside. I'm loving you guys as a group because I've taught some of these academy classes where the technology skills of the teachers who were taking them were crazy low. And you were all, give yourself a pat on the back, you're all baseline technology competent, which makes this real more interesting for me. So thank you.
But that feeds into what I was going to say. I taught 5th grade for a long time, 4th grade, and when I get the kids that first week, it depends who they had.
Yeah.
I already know, one teacher, I'm like, these guys are going to be ready to go. The other guys, they don't even know how to get on the server. I mean, and I have to, since there's really no accountability at the teacher level for technology for teaching students, I'll get a whole class of students that have no idea how to do anything.
And again, this is why we have the SPITS position, the school-based technology specialist. Their job is supposed to be helping teachers learn how to integrate technology in their classroom. In some schools, their principal uses them like their job description says. In other schools, they're just another fix-it person because that's how their principal allows them to function. So we try, and then we have varied disparities from building to building based on local leadership sometimes.
That's true, but sometimes, you go to this class, the SPIT's up there doing a thing, doing a great job, and next teacher's like, I don't know what they're doing. They checked out.
See?
They're sitting there grading papers. So.
That's not what there's a teacher, the SPID role, I was one for 4 or 5 years, is to teach the other teachers in the building, not to instruct students. So I'll just let that soapbox moment sit there for a moment. There's another question comment. We'll put a summary on this conversation. Okay, so what we're talking about so far today really can be done with many, many tools. In this class, we're looking at, I described it as a Whitman sampler, exposing you to a lot of audio and video tools that are available in Blackboard. But no matter what tool you decide to hone in on and really start using, if any, with your class, with your students in your classes, remember that you have this Blackboard online space. This is your official virtual classroom space. Google's there too. Google is awesome. Google Classroom can be used in conjunction with Blackboard. But remember, this space exists. in addition to your face-to-face. And so like, be intentional about what is, it's bottom line, be intentional. Think about your instructional goals. Think about your role as the teacher. What role you want your students to have. We're going to use a particular tool. What is my instructional purpose in using that tool? How does it, what's my instructional goal first? Think about the goal, think about what you want to accomplish, and then think back about all the tools you've learned about. Which of these tools matches what I would want to really get at? Know where your supports are. You have an SBIT in every building. Go to that person for support. You have a question, hey, I kind of remember this thing, I learned it in an academy class. Can you help me remember what I used to know? Or, here's what I want to do. What tool do we have in the county that can support that learning goal? What's the purpose of my class time? What's the purpose of my out of class time? I want to give them, if I send them home with homework, I want that to be meaningful in some way, not just mindless busy work. So check, I've done it. So keep that in mind as we go out throughout the class. Questions, comments?
About the flip question.
Uh-huh.
I was just thinking of a comment that the kids have a lot of questions, and I imagine with practice you get better at covering all the angles. Is there any resource that we can use as we look into this?
In terms of
how to flip our lesson plan?
Yes, there are a lot.
Oh.
In one of those things in this activity 10, I think it's more flipped classroom resources. Takes you to a wiki with a whole bunch of things. Also, in the external links area of the course, I link you to a book from ASCD, Flip Your Classroom. You may want to check that out, see if your school has that in its professional learning library. Just do a Google search for Flip My Classroom.
I like the idea of the centers.
Yeah.
And I like the
Oh,
idea
that's another one. Sorry. Thank you for bringing that up. Because one thing I had on my list, I hadn't got there. Because I know it came up in the online discussion board. A lot of the examples that are shown in the videos are all secondary school, high school, middle school. You brought it up in your question and your post. Who else are my elementary teachers? What are your thoughts? How could this idea be used at the elementary level?
I kind of already do it in social studies. I teach AP, so that gives me a little bit more latitude with what I need to do for direct instruction. And so,
Did I just hear you say you teach AP at the elementary level?
AAP. TT. So, for example, social studies, the book is online. They can read the book online, or they can read the book, and pretty much all the classroom time is spent on doing a project that's done, at school as opposed to for homework. So, yeah, all of the textbook online, and I have a lot of online resources are done at home, and then we did projects in the classroom. So I actually, I do. I guess that's what.
Yeah. What else?
We have a serious lack of technology as far as at home for the students, and technology that's worth turning on in our classrooms. We have good enough technology as teachers, but our student laptops, sometimes it's not even worth trying to bother with those.
I mean, if it was a station, and then you had 4 or 5 computers there, I only teach math, so maybe Mayan, if we did a literature book on there, they could, instead of reading it to the class, they could maybe read it there and then do the class discussion after that.
The simplest thing that I do is, videos are always fun for kids, and I put like Bill Nye, science guy videos. I used to play in class, but then I was like, oh, that eats 20 minutes of class time. So then I would assign it to just watch at home, and it's fun and it's engaging, but there are the students that don't have access to internet. They have access to phones, laptops, everything, they don't have access to internet. You always give the little space bubble to say that, like, hey, you don't have access, your computer messes up the night before,
You're not penalized for it. You just do it in the morning during morning work. But then to kind of ensure that they did watch the video or whatever it is, I have them do a response, whether it's a 3-to-1, what's 3 things you learned, 2 fun factoids. And I either do it, you know, in a journal or in a Google form that I send a link to, and they have to pull it out that way. But those are small little ways in 5th grade.
I've done it for stations too in math. I've done that. On Blackboard, I have a bunch of sites that they can go to. Problem with that is there's really no accountability because there's, I mean, unless I put an e-card test in there, there's really no way to monitor it.
So I think if I would have sent, and I haven't done this, but if I was to send something home for them to rewatch, it would be a videotape of what we did in class. So it wouldn't be ahead of time. It would be looking at how kids have been solving problems and the different strategies that they're using and their ability to explain their thinking so that parents, especially like in math, know how the kids are going about solving problems so that when they go to face their work that evening, the parents aren't trying to teach them, you know, an old non-productive way to do it.
Right.
And just, so you have those parents, well, how can I help them? How can I help them help watch these videos? See how your students learn in class. I'll send you home some questions to ask and work on it that way rather than trying to unteach what I taught so I have to reteach it the next day. Because your child comes home with their homework done, the strategy that we've never seen before, and so I know that you did it for them because that's not something they use in class at all.
I've taught basic skills, and that would be a wonderful tool, would be to have access, because I tell the kids when I've taught it that I can do English and social studies, but math, you're not going to want to wait for me to figure out how to do the problem. So it would be really nice to periodically watch a video like that, even as a teacher, to say, oh yeah, or remind the kids, you know, that lesson you could look and review it with the teacher. So that would be a nice tool to have as a resource.
So application at the elementary level as well. All right, finally, we are going to move on now. We're almost an hour. But this is the important stuff. This is why we do all that techie stuff, because we really want to impact our classroom and make lives for our students better. Reach them in new, exciting ways. All right, so any more questions, comments? Okay, moving on. Back to some techie stuff. And let me change our video. So we're capturing what's on my screen. Talk more about this in session 4 probably, but Google Hangouts and all that good stuff. So come on, come on, come on. No, not responding, lovely. I hope our video is still going. Let's give it a couple minutes to there. All right. Just to give you a little meta. So using this as an example of blended learning. So we have the voice board. You had some reflection assignments. A number of you went in and did them. If this were more of more of an online class, I personally, as the instructor, would be a lot more active in the discussion board. Since we meet Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm interacting less on the discussion board and saving my interaction for our face-to-face time. You can see the voice board. I am listening to your stuff. I listened to a bunch and jot down some thoughts I wanted to address with you here face-to-face. But so please use that space to just post your own reflections, and then also listen and comment on some others. And so some really nice things happening when I was listening at one earlier this morning. I wanted to say something else. I forget what it was. All right. So second thing, discuss some of the technical things about this thing called Java. Well, who is able to successfully make a post in our voice board? And I have to close some programs because my computer is really slow. So you notice when you go into the voice board, this wheel starts spinning. Java was learning. Who was not able to post because of Java? I don't know.
I don't know. I tried to go through Chrome and the internet, and all I got was it's not accessible.
Right. Oh, then everyone.
But here now, I can get it. But at home, I couldn't.
Here you can get it as a Chrome. Give me a second. This is when I want to start sharing my screen. So you all know, that's the other thing. You notice last class I jotted down the number of questions I was going to check on and get back to you later.
Yeah.
Everything I jotted down, there's an announcement where those questions are answered. So you catch that.
Yes.
Okay, good. So that's how I'm kind of using this our Blackboard space to deal with that follow-up type stuff. If you have any questions that you think of later, feel free to pop me an email. I'll do the research and post it as an announcement. Share. 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 So good. All right, good. We're sharing that with everyone. Hi. Okay. These tools use Java. There are tools we're looking at throughout the class that will not be impacted by what I'm about to go into with Java. It's just the Blackboard voice tools. The voice mashup, remember what that was, the voice board, that's what we're using to record your reflections. Voice presenter, we touched on that momentarily before end of last class. We're talking about podcast or email today. Those are the 5 tools that are impacted by this Java. And what the impact is, this has changed since I taught this class last summer. So joy of technology, things keep changing all the time. Where we are today on Internet Explorer, Java works just fine, which is why I recommended that everybody log into Blackboard through Internet Explorer. On Chrome, it's not going to work at all. Chrome stopped with version 42, which was 15. They cut off support for Java and other plugins, many other plugins. So if you want to use these tools with your kids, Chrome is out. On Firefox, misspelled, I'll fix that later. On Firefox, Java will run, but they recently, like within the last few weeks, changed things so it needs to be authorized every session. So if you like using Firefox, you can do it with these tools. There's a link that takes you to an article that shows you how to enable it every time.
What kind of Java issues here? I was looking to see what I did. Blackboard. You posted that. When did you post it?
Where I put this?
This is posted on Blackboard now.
Announcements for this course. This is one of the announcements the questions I answered. Yeah, so.
I know that.
So if I had trouble with the internet and the Chrome, I should then try Firefox and go in through Mozilla?
I would more recommend using Internet Explorer. Although that didn't work,
Yeah.
I would try Firefox. So let me show that. Let me try showing that. What happens in Firefox? I'm assuming everyone knows what a browser is. There's Chrome, there's Firefox, there's Internet Explorer. I'm seeing lots of nods. Okay, good. Years past, people wouldn't know that. So yay to you. All right, so I've got a. When we take a break, I'm going to reboot my machine. It's really slow. Maybe I'll try closing some windows. But I don't want to because I've got this like I'm like the chef that had prepared things earlier to show you all my tabs are open for a reason. Okay, while it comes up, what you'll see in a minute when Firefox comes up, I'm going to log into Blackboard, go to our voice board, and in the upper left-hand corner, there's going to be something that looks to me kind of like a Lego piece that you have to click on and say Enable Java. Let me try this instead. I think there's screenshots there. I'm wondering if my computer's downloading updates, because of course it would do that during class, not for the 3 hours I had before class. Wow, that is like cool. Yeah, I'm going to try rebooting my machine. So any questions on this piece first? Okay. All right, so again, that only matters for these 5 tools. So if you find an instructional use for these 5 tools, remember you have those caveats. We'll just leave it right there. Let's take 10. We'll convene when that is a quarter till, and I'll reboot my machine, and hopefully we won't be quite as slow as we are right now.
I don't think on this one, on my phone machine, I have Firefox, and I've used it on one of the home ones.
Broadcast.
But I can't get my H drive here